Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at War update. And as we're set to discuss the latest developments here in Israel, throughout the region and beyond, it's always important to mark today, day 557, since October 7th of 2023, when the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates committed the heinous massacre against the citizens of southern Israel, kidnapping over 250, mostly civilians, with 59 of them still in Hamas captivity to date, at least, or up to 24 of them still alive. And on that and more, we have a panel of experts to include, of course, Mr. Amir Oren, our TV7 editor-at-large, as well as from Central Israel, we have Brigadier General in Reserve Doron Gavish, who's the commander of the Israeli Air Force Task Force for Air and Missile Defense, and Brigadier General in Reserve Dr. Amnon Sofrin, who formerly served as the Chief of Intelligence at Mossad and a senior officer at the IDF Intelligence Directorate. Mr. Oren, a new proposal has been now delivered to the Islamist Hamas to deliberate, of course, whether or not the terror group is willing to move ahead with it. What can you tell us about it?
So this is an Egyptian proposal, and Hamas is yet to formally respond to it. There was an indication yesterday that if it does respond, it will be negative. And the basic outline is that in return for some 9, 10, or 11 Israeli hostages who are alive, plus some of the dead hostages, the fighting will be stopped for a number of days. Whether the number would be 40, 50, or as Hamas demands 75, this is of course part of the negotiations.
And the outline currently states a 45-day hold.
Yes, but the problem is not the number of people and not the number of days, but the insistence of Hamas that there will be a process towards a permanent ceasefire, which is another term for the cessation of the war, which the Israeli government opposes. So there it stays. We don't see the presidential envoy, Stephen Witkoff, who is otherwise occupied in the Iranian talks, in the Russia-Ukraine mediation. We don't see him in the region yet. And the families of the hostages are pressing the government to do more. In Gaza itself, the Israeli operation goes on. More and more Hamas commanders have been eliminated. In one instance, the Shaja'iyya battalion commander has been killed for the 5th time. 4 of his predecessors have been killed earlier. This particular person was a company commander. He was promoted to battalion commander because last week the battalion commander was killed, and he was killed almost immediately. The Hamas infrastructure in Gaza, to include the tunnels, which either have been overlooked when the Israeli forces were there the last time around, or perhaps were dug since the forces left there. These tunnels are being methodically destroyed, and the forces have taken over more and more land tracts in Gaza, both in the northern part as well in the southern part, driving the population to sanctuary areas.
Commander of Shaja'iyya, of course, not a very lucrative position to hold these days, but nonetheless, it seems that the IDF is, despite holding a very high level of ambiguity on the fog of war and maintaining a heightened state of pressure upon the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates in the Gaza Strip, it seems like we are still not at a point in which Hamas is desperate.
Because what we talked about can be described as inputs. The output, that is Hamas' willingness to meet Israeli demands, we are still not there.
Indeed. And General Sofian, I'd like to ask you on this. Since the Islamist Hamas, one of the points that it rejects in any case under the current outline is an Israeli demand for disarming the Islamist group and ensuring that it will not maintain its governance over the Palestinian enclave after the war, basically.
Of course, Hamas doesn't agree with that, and Hamas objects this condition that Israel is posing. That means is not willing to disarm himself, and it's not willing to give up his position in Gaza. They don't see them, even though they expressed earlier the fact that they don't have to rule Gaza, but to be part of the governance that will be created in Gaza, meaning that they are aiming for what we call Fatah control on Gaza, and they will be part of that. They don't have to be in front like they did before. But nevertheless, they don't give up, and they don't intend to leave Gaza, and they don't intend to deliver all the weapon systems and disarm themselves. It's unnegotiable in their own point of view, and therefore there is a huge gap between Israel and between Hamas on this occasion, on this point, and I don't see that it can be breached very soon in order to be able to go to what we call to the end state of this war.
Thank you, General Sofri and General Gavish. We had earlier today a phone conversation between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and French President Emmanuel Macron amid a certain disagreement, basically, between Paris and Jerusalem, particularly after the French leader declared his intent to declare French recognition of a Palestinian state during a Saudi or expected Saudi hosted summit that is expected to take place in the kingdom later in June. What can you tell us about this complexity, and to what degree do you see the pushback by Israel reinvigorating or basically recalibrating the French calculus?
Well, if we look at the history, this is not the first time that the French leaders wanted to do something like this. In the past, they withdraw from this intention, and I hope that this would be the same position today. We all understand that doing it is basically rewarding the Hamas for what he did. We all understand that there would be, from the points of a lot of Palestinians, other terrorist organizations, and whoever, they would be in a position that they would say, here we go. We did what we've did, and this was the result. So this is, I think, a blow to the West. If this would be what the French government would do. This is for the first thing. The second thing is, other than declaration, there is nothing into it. We all know it. He knows it also. So from every angle that you look at it, we believe that this is a huge mistake to do, and hopefully that there would be some pressure that would come from other Israeli friends in this world that he would withdraw from this position.
Thank you, General Gavish. Mr. Oren, French President Macron also spoke with Palestinian Authority Chairman, the President Mahmoud Abbas, during the course of which he highlighted the necessity to reform the Palestinian Authority due to deep-rooted corruption. We all know the dire situation within this institution that has shunned many parts of society due to lack of affiliation to the Fatah faction or other reasons behind it. They are utilizing those finances quite cynically. And this comes also at a time when the European Union, on the one hand, also calls for reform of the Palestinian Authority, but at the same time, after holding a high political dialogue group for the first time in history in Europe, it seems like they have now committed to another $1.6 billion euros over the course of at least 2 years, between 2 to 3 years, to be delivered to the Palestinian Authority. How does this converge, basically? Is there going to be some type of new scrutiny to ensure that those funds do reach their intended targets?
Well, you know, in several cultures, there is a legendary person who either falls asleep or gets into a coma and then wakes up many years later. Rip Van Winkle, or in the Hebrew tradition, Choni. So it seems as if 20 years ago, someone fell asleep during the Bush administration when Sarkozy was the French president, and the talk was of the map towards a Palestinian state, various stages and conditions and milestones, the roadmap to be met. And here we are, 20 years later. Abu Mazen at the time just took over from Arafat, who died in late 2004. Nothing really happened except Hamas took over Gaza and is fighting Fatah. However, there is value in putting forward a process, not a final act immediately. Tomorrow, we are going to establish a Palestinian state. But some path, some horizon, if you meet these conditions and reform your governance and, you will eventually have a state or some entity which will not have all the attributes of a state, but could be declared a state. So this is a positive act on the part of the Saudis, of the French and others, especially if Israel wants to normalize relations with the Saudis and wants to give them cover. They cannot simply abandon the Palestinians in their views. Maybe Israel would have handled it another way, but Israel is not calling the shots in Riyadh. MBS is. And President Trump is going to the kingdom soon, also to Qatar and perhaps to other places in the region. It is beneficial for Israel to give the Palestinians at least the semblance, the appearance of a concession. The facts on the ground we can handle later.
Well, when it comes to the situation in the so-called Palestinian Authority, territories or territories under its rule, both governance and security, what is called here Area A, the deep-rooted corruption of this authority is what allowed the Islamist Hamas to take over the Palestinian Authority initially.
Israelis should not lecture others about corruption.
Well, yes, they should. They should, particularly at a time when we are dealing with something that directly impacts us. So when we're talking about corruption, at least I'm not corrupt, so I can talk about it.
Good.
And therefore, when I'm looking specifically about the situation in the Palestinian-controlled territories, I see the Islamist Hamas taking over or winning the elections to the Palestinian Authority due to the Fatah corruption. What happened after that is a whole long story, of course, of causality and different developments. But that is something that needs to be dealt with. And I think it's counterproductive to provide assurances of large sums of money to go to a certain entity that is deep-rooted corrupted and does not necessarily treat the finance with the scrutiny necessary. And the European Union should consider this better. But nonetheless, General Sofrin, I'd like to hear you specifically about the situation in Judea and Samaria, particularly also in the northern Samaria region, where ongoing counter-terror operations are taking place. Just over the past 17 to 18 hours, 24 hours by now, we have the Islamist Hamas basically succumbing to a couple of terror cells in different locations with IDF troops apprehending over 50 suspected terror operatives. What can you tell us about that?
Judea and Samaria will be what we call the next battlefield that the Iranians will initiate to fight Israel. And this was built for some years ago by Salah al-Aruri, the late Salah al-Aruri was located in Beirut, and he was the one who initiated that under the premises that came from directly from Khamenei. Khamenei said that Israel will be defeated from Judea and Samaria. And therefore, they began building these cells that are composes of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and even Fatah people fighting all together against Israel. And as you see that we have people that they have their own cells in Jenin, in Tulkarem, in the whole area of northern Samaria, and in the villages that are bordering the Jordan Valley. And therefore, Israel is fighting this area for at least 7 months, or the last 7 months, getting in and getting out, getting in, getting out, and trying to control this area. And just about a month and a half ago, the defense minister said that, first of all, about 40,000 people left these camps, not to be hit by the IDF, and that he ordered the IDF to stay there or to plan to stay there for a whole year. That means the whole of a year of 2025. That means that the deployment of Israeli forces of the IDF in these camps will be probably, according to what the defense minister dictated, at least as long as we have to be there in 2025, and that doesn't rule the area, the idea that we will have to go and fight other places where we find out there are hidden cells and new cells that are arising. And the fact that you arrest people is for investigations and to get more information and to see who is really guilty and who is not. And this is the way we're going to handle Judea and Samaria for the last coming months.
Are the Palestinian security apparatus still engaged in their own counter-terror operation against the same territories?
Partly. They have some their own difficulties, but they cooperate and they try to make their own operations without dependence with Israel, not to be exposed as collaborating with Israel. But nevertheless, they have their own agenda and they have their own efforts, and they try to make the best, because what scares them most is the fact that Hamas is going to take control on the whole area, and that's what Hamas is planning.
Thank you, General Sofri. And General Gavish, I'd like to shift gears to Yemen. Is there anything new that we need to know about?
Well, allow me, Jonathan, just for a second, not to shift gear yet, because when I heard Amir saying that it is positive what is being done by the French leader, I mean, I can't think about this, that we have to remember, you talked about corruption, but we're talking about the Palestinian Authority, who is supporting those terrorists that killed Israelis, supporting their families. We're talking about the same ones that if you read their books, we shouldn't be here in Israel. We are the furious enemy. We are like a Satan for there, and all those things that, of course, they didn't say a word about the Hamas butchering Israelis. I mean, who are we talking about? We are talking about 70% of them that they were supporting what was made by the Hamas days after what they did. So they deserve now a state. This is something that is positive. No, I think it is negative. There were no buts in the French president's statement. So once again, I really hope that he will withdraw from it. Going back to Yemen, I think that what is really significant in the last few weeks that we see the U.S. forces led by CENTCOM continuously striking the Houthis. This is something that is happening for more than 3 weeks now. We see the enforcements of U.S. assets here in the region, a lot of them because of the fight with the Houthis. And we also see it here in Israel. I mean, if you're looking at the last 2 weeks, the events of missiles that made their way toward Israel, We had only 2 of them. It's not that they didn't try; they tried, but most of the launched missiles fell ashore or were not ready yet, and this is also because of the pressure that is being applied by the U.S. Forces over there. So I really hope that this is something that would be continue until the point that the Houthis will understand that this is not the war, and they should stop what they are doing for sure towards Israel.
Mr. Owen, there are reports about a Saudi-led coalition being formed once again with approximately 80,000 ground troops preparing to take over Al-Hudaydah. Is there truth to that? And if so, what is the significance of having a combined task force, so to speak? On the one hand, the United States under NAVCENT conducting both maritime and aerial operations, and on the other hand, ground forces by the Saudi-led coalition to further eradicate the Houthis in Yemen.
Well, one can hardly see other governments joining under Saudi command. Even in 1991, during Desert Storm, where Prince Khalid was the nominal commander of the inter-Arab forces, including a Syrian division and an Egyptian division, it was really a series of national commands. One cannot really see the UAE or Oman or others serving under Saudi command because they each have their separate interests. It is true that everyone, the United States included, wants to help the legitimate sovereign Yemenite government, which is not Ansar Allah, not the Houthis, but sending ground forces into Yemen for several years, because it doesn't seem as if the Houthis are going to give up. Doesn't seem in the cards. Perhaps it is done for deterrence. And may I remind you that even though there is an improvement in the American methods employed, because President Trump has delegated the authority to the CENTCOM commander, General Kurilla, nevertheless, Trump did not make good on his threat to hit Iran the next time the Houthis fire at either Israel or U.S. shipping. So one should distinguish between what is being said and what is being done.
Well, give him time. I mean, he never set a timeline of when he's going to do.
Sure,
so we'll have to wait and see.
We have these shows a couple of times every week, so we have a lot of time to spare.
Right. Well, we're drawing near to the end of the program, and I'd like to give each of you the opportunity to have a closing statement of 1 minute, no longer, please. General Soflin, we'll start with you.
I think that the most important event right now in the Middle East is the negotiations between the American administration and the Iranians regarding to get to a new nuclear deal that will enable us to be more safe. And we have to watch and see, because the first meeting was very, as they declared, was fruitful, and they are going to go on and meet on this Saturday in Oman and to carry on with the discussions. But we'll have to watch and see.
On that, of course, President Trump did note that the Iranians seem to be dragging their feet.
It will probably be in Rome.
It will probably be in Rome. There are now discussions about that, because the Iranians demand that it will be in the Omani embassy in Rome, while the Italians disagree about that specifically. But General Gavish?
Well, I think that what we see in Gaza Strip, hopefully that there would be also a deal there that at least some of the hostages would be back here in Israel, even during this holiday. This is what I wish for them and for us.
That's what we all wish, of course. Mr. Olin?
The IDF is keeping watch over Lebanon. It is methodically hitting Hezbollah activities and leaders. Every other day, you hear.
There was another targeted killing today.
Indeed, there was someone either leading the anti-tank group or someone else who has been planning terror attacks against Israeli citizens and troops. And Hezbollah apparently is being deterred. It is not retaliating. And even though it all started in late November, intended to take place only for a month or two, it's been more than 4 months already, and the ceasefire is holding, except when Israel sees a threat and acts to eliminate it.
Indeed. Also, another theater that we need to highlight is Syria, where Turkey is still looking very closely at the developments. There was the Antalya conference over the weekend, during the course of which we heard a lot of rhetoric against Israel over Turkish frustrations that it does not manage to enter into this as the replacement to Iran's sphere or dominance in that sphere of influence. And we'll have to wait.
We have seen the phone call between Secretary of State Rubio and the Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. They talked about stability in Syria as the most pressing issues for Washington and Ankara.
Absolutely. Well, much still to discuss, but we'll have to leave that to our next productions. And with that, I'd like to thank General Sofrin and General Gavish for all of your valuable insights. To thank also Mr. Oren, of course, as well. And to thank all of you at home. Until our next edition, from here in Jerusalem, wishing you a good day. Shalom.
My name is Doron Gavish, and my background, 30 years of serving in the Israeli Air Force. My last job, I was the commander of the Israeli Air and Missile Defense during the introduction of the Iron Dome to the defense of Israel. All of this allows me really to be part of the team here in TV7. It is super important to have such a platform. We talk about the global situation, we talk about Israel, and those different angles which are relevant to the discussion.
For more of TV7's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at TV7israelnews.com.
Jerusalem Studio, now available on Spotify.